B. Collins.
Peter B. Collins, news and comment. It's Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. The president who never apologizes apologized on behalf of the nation last night. That's our lead story, but before I get to it, I want to alert you that there will be no news and comment podcast tomorrow. Your humble host has another all-day video shoot. It's the last one scheduled for the foreseeable future, and I'll be here full strength on Thursday, as usual. So it was an unnecessary photo opportunity. And if Brett Kavanaugh had any political sense, we know he only has, political hack sense, he would have said, Mr. President, it's quite an honor to offer me this White House ceremony to repeat my oath of office and my swearing in, and to have all the other justices, including Anthony Kennedy, who organized and created the opportunity for me to be rammed on to the Supreme Court. Let's just pass on that. But Brett Kavanaugh is a political animal. And he allowed himself to be used by Donald Trump, and so did Justice Kennedy, for this tawdry photo op. And while many Americans are reeling in disgust at Kavanaugh himself and the process that put him on the court, the bare-knuckled, brazen politics, the ugly, raw power that was used and abused, Trump is launching a counter-narrative. And it appears with help from his favorite media outlet over at Fox News and the Twitter fan base that he has built up. He is rewriting the entire recent history that we all lived through. And he's declaring that Brett Kavanaugh was a victim who earned this rare apology from Donald Trump. On behalf of our nation, I want to apologize to Brett and the entire Kavanaugh family for the terrible pain and suffering you have been forced to endure. Listen to this bullshit. Nobody forced Brett Kavanaugh to be appointed to the Supreme Court. He chose to accept a nomination from this tainted president, which shows his own ambitions and his utility as a tool for the oligarchs of America. And this pain and suffering was that he had to resort to histrionics, to anger and drama, to deny allegations that most people found lacking evidence but highly credible. There was no real investigation, we know that. They went through the motions, they papered over the issues. And we are left with a man who will serve on the court for 30, perhaps 40 years, and we will always know that he was disqualified during the confirmation process, and the attempt by Republicans to rewrite this and to claim that the protesters who came to support Christine Blasey Ford and oppose the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh amount to a lefty mob that hates our nation and wants to take down this country? It is scary how this demagoguery appears to be so potent and appealing to so many Americans. And at this point, I can't figure out whether Trump's embrace of the big lie in service of covering up all of the little lies of Brett Kavanaugh is going to work. He's a skilled propagandist and a true demagogue who has shown his prowess in many ways, unfortunately. Trump went on to say that Kavanaugh was the victim of a campaign of political and personal destruction. And he went on to say that this is all just a sweeping hoax brought on by the Democrats, and that they are a mob. And that word mob is the key word, the major talking point that all of the Republicans are embracing right now. And as I've pointed out, this is projection. It's Trump who hosts mob rallies across the country, where he frequently lies, he vilifies his opponents, he cages the media, and encourages his rabid fans to scare the shit out of him. He calls the press the enemy of the people, and I have my own criticisms of media malpractice, but this is all to solidify the lies that are the foundation of his projected reality. So here's the quote. Kavanaugh was, quote, caught up in a hoax that was set up by the Democrats. It was all made up. It was fabricated, and it's a disgrace. Now, today, I'm releasing an in-depth interview with John Bonifaz. He's an attorney and activist. He wrote a book about impeaching George W. Bush. He was the co-founder of After Downing Street, raising issues about the lies that led us into the war in Iraq. And his group, which is called the Free Speech for People organization, which is also linked to the National Voting Rights Institute, well, they are promoting impeachment for Donald Trump, and I interviewed his co-author of the book The Constitution Demands It, Ron Fine. That podcast has been up at peterbcollins.com for a few weeks now. So in my conversation with John Bonifaz, he points out that there is clear evidence of perjury by Brett Kavanaugh related to the stolen documents from Democrats. They were grabbed by Republicans, shared with Kavanaugh during his earlier confirmation hearings in 2004 and 2006. And he lied about all this again in the 2018 hearings. And listen to this clip from the conversation with John Bonifaz, where he talks about Brett Kavanaugh's exposure to impeachment and how the Democrats failed to really drive that nail all the way in when he perjured himself.
So the first order of business that we believe the House of Representatives has is to deal with this question of the evidence that's already there for Justice Kavanaugh having committed perjury in the process of becoming a judge on the Federal Appeals Court and now a justice on the Supreme Court. The Constitution impeachment power that's there for providing a check on abuse of power includes corruptly obtaining the office as an impeachable offense. When the evidence was there for senators to see that Mr. Kavanaugh was committing perjury, they wouldn't call it out. You know, they went close to the line. Senator Feinstein and Senator Leahy, they said, tweeted out that he had been untruthful, but they weren't willing to make it clear that this is disqualifying and that these perjury actions, cannot stand. And then, as we saw the process go forward beyond that, there was somehow this sense that we weren't going to take the country beyond this 1 week. We were going to essentially let the FBI have that 1 week. All of this should have been postponed. I mean, our position from the very beginning, after Justice Kennedy announced his retirement, is that this president, who is under direct investigation, a criminal investigation as to whether or not he and or his associates conspire with a foreign government to interfere with the 2016 election, a president that has willfully violated the Constitution from the moment he took the oath of office, under that scenario of a president who's so lawless, his nominees to the Supreme Court should not be considered until impeachment proceedings against him have been concluded.
I invite you to listen to the full interview with attorney John Bonifaz as we talk about their efforts to impeach Brett Kavanaugh. And the website they've set up is impeachbrett.org if you'd like to pay them a visit. An important point made at The Intercept today by a writer whose byline I have not seen before, and it's a tricky name. His first name is 4 letters, E-O-I-N. Eoin? Sorry, I don't know your name, sir. His last name is Higgins. And Mr. Higgins makes a critical point, that Brett Kavanaugh and Gina Haspel, who now runs the CIA, would not have gotten these job promotions if Barack Obama had allowed even fundamental investigations and prosecutions for war crimes, for surveillance, for the torture regime that this country embraced, or that the administration embraced at our expense. If Obama hadn't said we're looking forward, not backward, in early 2009, and just allowed the system to work. The Democrats controlled both houses during the first 2 years of the Obama presidency, and they could have used that power to expose the wrongdoing of the Bush administration, including Brett Kavanaugh's role in it. And that is not just a missed opportunity. I believe that it was misfeasance and very poor judgment on the part of President Obama. Well, today Nikki Haley dropped a little surprise. She had written a resignation letter dated 1 week earlier, October the 3rd. But there was a quickly arranged photo op in the White House because the resignation was about to leak. Now, she says she just needs a break. She was governor of South Carolina for 6 years. She spent 2 years as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. She did Trump's bidding, kissing up to Israel, hammering the UN on human rights when they called out Israel's clear violations. And she is described as the key advisor to Donald Trump, who pushed him over the edge to withdraw from the Iranian nuclear deal. Now, you would think she's very like-minded with John Bolton, but we're told they don't get along. And I just bet that Bolton has somebody lined up to become UN ambassador who shared his view that, gosh, if you just blew up 3 floors of the UN building, no one would notice. Bolton has such contempt for the UN. He and Haley did tangle a little bit over the recent foray by Trump to the General Assembly, where he insisted on chairing a session of the Security Council. And Haley had framed it so tightly that Bolton intervened and changed the framing so that it wouldn't create an opportunity for Iran to respond to Trump's nonsense. So she's announced her resignation, but it's not effective until the end of the year. And this suggests to me that Bolton and Trump do have somebody lined up who is going to be a movement conservative who will rally the base even more in pursuit of these mythical, fictional, and deceptive goals and objectives. And I don't know who that monster will be, but I am prepared to see that break in the next few days. And it's unlikely that they would schedule confirmation hearings before the midterm elections. But I can't be sure of that. Trump has been absolutely silent about the devastating report from the UN's panel on climate change released yesterday that says that the acceleration of warming of the globe is going to lead to sea level rise, extreme weather events, famine, drought. And Trump is unfazed. Didn't have anything to say about it. Meanwhile, in Den Haag, The Hague in the Netherlands, one of the appeals court of the Dutch system, this is not related to the international courts in The Hague, has issued a ruling upholding a legal order on the Dutch government to accelerate cuts in carbon emissions. Appeal court judges ruled that the severity and scope of the climate crisis demands greenhouse gas reductions of at least 25% by 2020 as compared to 1990 levels, more than the 17% committed to by the current government in the Netherlands. And a director of the Urgenda campaign, which brought the case, Marjan Menesma, said, "The special report of the IPCC emphasizes that we need to reduce emissions with much greater urgency. The Dutch government knows that as a low-lying country, we are on the front line of climate change. Our own government agencies recently concluded that in the worst-case scenario, sea levels might rise 2.5 to 3 meters by the end of the century. The Court of Appeal's decision puts all governments on notice. They must act now, or they will be held to account." Well, that's what's going on in the rest of the world. And here we are loosening regulations, promoting coal-fired power plants. It is just astounding. And so it goes. There is a potential serious crisis, I think, emerging in the Middle East. as Turkey continues to take on the government of Saudi Arabia, accusing them of being responsible for a missing or dead man, a journalist and a former advisor to the Saudi royal family. His name is Jamal Khashoggi. I guess in Arabic that K is silent. It's more like Khashoggi. As we reported yesterday, a week ago, October 2nd, he went to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to pick up papers so that he could remarry. And his wife-to-be said he never emerged. And the Turkish authorities believe that 2 jets that were chartered from Riyadh to Istanbul that day brought security goons who made him disappear. Now, we don't know if he remains alive or if one theory that appears prominently is that he was murdered and dismembered inside the Saudi consulate, and then his body parts were removed in a couple of vans with diplomatic plates. Now, friends of Khashoggi have canceled plans for a funeral prayer for him, which had been expected to turn into a big demonstration against Saudi Arabia, and we don't have an explanation yet for that decision. Not clear if the move reflected pressure from the Turkish government or uncertainty about the fate of Mr. Khashoggi. Now, the Washington Post is championing his cause. He had recently signed on as an op-ed contributor there. The Post today ran a blank space on their op-ed page where his next column should have appeared. So we know these 2 jets came in from Riyadh, one at 3 in the morning, one about 11 in the morning. Do I have that right? No, the second one was on the ground for only an hour. It came in at 5:15 p.m. and left at 6:20 p.m. And the tracking of those planes show that the second one flew out to Egypt and then returned to Riyadh. The first one flew out to Dubai before heading back to Riyadh. So there's quite a bit of speculation here. And if this is proven, that the Saudis are responsible for the death or disappearance of Khashoggi, will the Trump administration place sanctions on the hand-holding friends they have in the Saudi royal family? And to be fair, every American president in recent history has debased himself to the Saudis. Trump is simply providing continuity in that respect. Meanwhile, the New York Times appears to have been subcontracting an important investigation. As you know, I have been skeptical of the heavily managed coverage of the Skripal case from Salisbury, England. As you know, the allegation is that Sergei Skripal, former double agent from Russia, and his daughter were poisoned by GRU operatives. That's what the British government says. And those 2 men have covert op names or fake names. At least that's what is believed. So the New York Times published a story yesterday regarding the identity of the second Russian GRU suspect. And they claim that he is a medical doctor, Alexander Mishkin, a graduate of an elite military academy who was recruited by the GRU. Now, this is based not on the work of the New York Times, not on studies by the official investigators or people with, access to the evidence of the case. No, this is being driven by reports from the murky investigative group called Bellingcat. And go ahead and look up Bellingcat online. It is an operation that was founded by a British citizen journalist named Elliot Higgins. And they focus on issues that I believe make them a likely tool of the U.S. intelligence agencies and their sisters in other countries. And Bellingcat has done investigations on claims of chemical weapons use in the Syrian war. They've also covered the war in Ukraine. They claim to have proved that Russia was responsible for shooting down MH17. And they have lately gotten involved in investigating the Skripal poisoning. and I do not consider them a legitimate news outlet. I think that they have compromising ties. And yet the New York Times, the news organ of record in the United States, is republishing their work. And maybe it's accurate. But I have real problems when the New York Times lowers its standards in ways that leave us wondering if we can believe what they publish. Every day I pause for a moment to thank the people who support my work here at the Peter B. Collins Podcast with your subscriptions. People who chip in $5, $10, or $20 a month. People like Brian Mozzie, Janet Price, Terry Paris, and Bill Janetta. I appreciate the support you offer, and I want other people to emulate your behavior. All you have to do is visit peterbcollins.com, click on menu, then click on Become a Subscriber. You land on the sign-up page, and boom, in a minute or two, you can set up a subscription using PayPal at $5, $10, or $20 a month. The $50 annual subscription is available. And if you're allergic to PayPal, yo comprendo. You can send me any correspondence by the U.S. mail. My address is Box 150, 660. San Rafael, California, 94915. Yes, I'll say that again. Box 150, 660. San Rafael, California, 94915. Yesterday, we reported on the alert issued by Greg Palast for voters in Georgia following a massive purge by the Secretary of State Kemp, who is candidate for governor this year. Palast has put up on his website at gregpalast.com a page where if you live in Georgia or in Indiana, you can check and see if your voter registration was purged without your knowledge. And the Indiana case is somewhat similar to Georgia, where a Republican Secretary of State participating in Chris Kobach's scam, the interstate cross-check list, purged thousands of voters. Now, the total count in Indiana appears to be in the range of 469,000 voters. Now, that is the total number. But those who showed up on the interstate cross-check list amount to a number around 27,000. And this is based on the idea that these are people who are registered in more than one state. But a deep investigation by the Palast Fund indicates that out of those 27,000 voters purged because they're on the cross-check list, only 7,000 of those people moved either inside Indiana or left the state. So that leaves 20,000 of my friends in Hoosierland, including Rex. Hey, Rex, I know you're listening. Rex sends me notes about how he is a blue dot in a sea of red. Well, Rex, go to gregpalast.com and check to see if your registration is intact. Yesterday, the New York Times ran a pretty balanced story, recapping the issues related to Keith Ellison. And as you know, I like Keith Ellison. He's the first Muslim American elected to Congress from Minneapolis. He's leaving Congress with candidacy for Attorney General in the state of Minnesota. And just a day or two before the primary, his former girlfriend, Karen Monahan, went public, accused him of being a narcissist, subjecting her to narcissist abuse, which is a novel claim, and I am not denying that she may have a basis for this. I know enough about Keith Ellison to be sympathetic to a claim that he might have narcissist tendencies. Now, in my interactions with him, he's been extremely honest and didn't require the kind of slavish kiss ass that other elected officials seem to want when they're interviewed by somebody like me in the media. Now, Ellison denies abusing Monahan. Democratic Party leaders asked a lawyer to investigate. They continue to support his bid to become Attorney General. And the initial allegations cannot be proven because Karen Monahan has declined or is unable to produce a video of the key event that she cites, where they had an argument. He told her to get out of his place, and he tried to drag her off a bed physically. Now, is this an issue that can be resolved by the public or even through an official investigation? Is this simply a bad breakup, a he said, she said case? Because the police were never called, and, it's clear that Karen Monahan has had a negative impact from her breakup with Keith Ellison. And if she can bring evidence to support that, I would be willing to accept it. But it is a dicey case, and I'll admit my bias because I like Ellison, and my bias is to say it couldn't be true. But I'll follow the facts where they lead. Yesterday, Bill and Hillary Clinton, through the concert promoter Live Nation, which is owned by the company that used to be called Clear Channel, now iHeartMedia, they are going to do a 13-city arena tour after the midterm elections. Bill and Hillary will go on the stage and present an opportunity to hear one-of-a-kind conversations with the two leaders as they tell their stories from some of the most impactful moments in modern history. What? I mean, Hillary just did a book tour last year about her loss. Why can't they just sit back and enjoy the millions of dollars that they have collected since they left public office broke in 2000? This concert tour, this arena tour, certainly will generate millions of dollars for them as they promote what I consider to be false narratives of their political ascendance, of their impact on government, all good according to them. And they will spin up the Russian claim and how they lost the 2016 election. They'll, of course, take responsibility and then shift the blame to absolutely everyone else. Somebody on Facebook, I can't remember who it was, said, "Don't they have enough money already?" Over at Shadowproof, Kevin Gostola is doing a good job as usual, keeping up with Reality Winner, who leaked that one document, and they threw the book at her with an Espionage Act prosecution. She is being sentenced to, 63 months in federal prison. And the one allowance, the one concession that the trial judge gave to Reality Winner was that she could serve her sentence at a prison in Texas near her parents. And the idea is that they can help her with her chronic problems with depression and bulimia. But Gostola reports that Reality Winner hasn't made it to that prison in Texas. She is currently being held at the Grady County Jail in Chickasha, Oklahoma, where she says there are 81 women in a filthy warehouse, one shower, couple of toilets, no services, no programs, no recreation. We're just in here 24/7. She says it's been 3 weeks since she's been outdoors and had any fresh air or a look at a blue sky. And this is not the first place that she has stopped. They sent her to Florida for a while, then they flew her to Oklahoma City, where she was supposed to be transferred to Texas, but the plane broke down. And so they couldn't find a place in a federal facility, and they have parked her at a county jail. And finally today, a story from right here in San Francisco, where I painfully acknowledge that we have a homeless situation that is out of control. Our streets are littered with feces. They stink of urine. IV drug users leave their needles all over the place. We have tent encampments. It is a very sad scene. And what's fascinating is that sequential mayors have attempted to make a dent in the problem, and it only gets worse. We have a new mayor who was elected because Mayor Ed Lee died last year. Her name is London Breed. She's promised to clean up the streets and to address the homeless situation. She has some novel ideas that are being blocked by state and federal officials to open some safe injection sites so that people aren't on the street when they're shooting up. And I support that. But London Breed came out last week opposed to a local ballot measure, Proposition C, which would tax the largest businesses in San Francisco to generate new money to address homeless problems and solutions. And get this, Mark Benioff, who is the billionaire chief of Salesforce, and the guy who put his name on this ugly tower, the tallest building in San Francisco now, he has broken ranks with his other tech mogul buddies. And he's essentially saying, tax me. We must take on the homeless problem and deal with it. And I have to say, I have a lot of admiration for Mark Benioff, because new Mayor London Breed is apparently captive to the other tech moguls who say, well, yeah, we got a homeless problem, but you don't expect me to pay for it, do you? So Benioff is kicking in $500,000 of his own money, $500,000 of Salesforce money, and another $1 million of Salesforce money for ads to support this ballot measure. And it will cost Salesforce at least $10 million a year. And he is saying, please raise my taxes. I submit that is a welcome and novel change from the rampant greed and the kind of exceptional attitude of entitlement that so many rich people on the West Coast project on a daily basis. Hey, thanks for listening to this daily news and comment podcast. You can share it with anybody. You'll find it on YouTube. And I'm still Peter B. Collins.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails.